We'll get to them in just a moment. First, however, we need to take care of some business, namely the action on the minutes of our August 8th meeting. Minutes were distributed in advance. Is there a motion on the August 8th minutes?
So moved.
Second.
Discussion? All in favor, please say aye. 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 Those opposed, say nay. Our minutes are approved, and we can move right into the public hearings for this evening. For those who may be unfamiliar with this process, as each application is announced by a member of the staff, we ask that the applicant representative come forward to the podium in the front of the room, provide your name and address for the record, as well as a brief summary of your application. Following questions and points of clarification needed by the members of the commission, we will offer an opportunity to members of the public who wish to speak in favor of the application, and then we will similarly offer an opportunity for members of the public who wish to speak in opposition to the application. Where comments are made in opposition, we will encourage the applicant to return to address the comments that are made in opposition. So with that, may we have our first application of the evening, please?
Yes, good evening, Commission members. Mr. Kulik, the first public hearing is a continuation from June 27th, July 18th, and August 8th. This is AS 2208. It's a sign waiver for area and number to install new signage at 959 Hiawatha Boulevard West. The McGuire Family Limited Partnership is the owner and applicant, and it lies within an industrial class A zoning district. Thank you.
Hello again. My name is Lee Bear-Smith. I'm representing McGuire Automotive, and I'm from John Snyder Architects at 700 Cascadilla Street. The project address is 959 Hiawatha Boulevard West. So to address your comments from last meeting, you were asking for clarification on the requirements of the signage from the branding themselves. I provided both a follow-up letter from Stellantis speaking to such, and also a visual representation of both the pages from the document that was provided to us that we had to navigate through, as well as a side-by-side comparison of what they had to what we are providing. And there's roughly a little over a 50% reduction in the signage from what we were initially required to do. I'm happy to go through the presentation. I see there's a lot of people. I could hop to just side by side if that would be preferred.
Why don't you give us,
run through it?
Yeah,
Okay.
run through I think would be helpful, because we've been carrying this hearing for a couple of meetings now, and some of it goes back a ways, so I think to refresh
Absolutely.
would be great.
To start off, so going through the side-by-side documents. These are the cover images from the booklet that we had.
You can take that right out of there.
Okay, sorry.
If you want.
I just was hearing a little feedback, so I was a little concerned. So these are the side-by-side documents. You can see on the cover image the rendering that was provided by the manufacturer, that they're showing all the signage that we have currently included on the side facing Hiawatha. The only one you can't see, which is behind the entrance element right there, is the Ram sign, which is easily visible later on. Continuing on, they provided us this isometric image of the dealership, of how the brand Stellantis wanted to see the building as its final result, and also provided this plan right here, which the important aspect to pay attention to here is the square footage that they're indicating, because that will dictate the size of the brand requirements for the signage itself. These again are pages from that same booklet indicating the elevations that were provided to us. You will note on the front elevation that they have the service sign, the Jeep sign, the McGuire sign associated with Jeep, the 3 brand signs for the Chrysler, Dodge, Ram, and the McGuire sign there, all of which we have provided but at a smaller size. And initially, they wanted a car display tower with signage facing I-690. The tower has since been removed from the project, so that sign has now been relocated over to here onto the service drive. So that's the main difference between that there. This is the important chart that they provide us. So essentially, they break up their dealerships into 5 different size categories, and each dealership is to fit into one of those categories, and based off of that size dictates the size of the signage that they would like to see with that project. There is a variance process that we can go through with the branding requirements depending on zoning concerns. We have gone through that process. It was a battle with the manufacturer to get such a reduction achieved. But the big thing to note is this large right here is 52,000. We are currently sitting at 49, and we're supposed to round to the closest brand size when it comes to sizing both the space requirements in the building and the signage. Just quickly, these are the pages specifically dealing with our signage in the building that came out of the booklet, indicating, for instance, the different pylon sign sizes, the Jeep sizes, the dealer size signs for at least Jeep. And then same thing with Chrysler, Dodge, Ram. I will note that there is about 10 more sign pages of other signs that they would typically like to see on the site for wayfinding and items like that, but we got a variance for those not to have those because we were worried about having too much signage to begin with. Here's probably the clearest image between what they were requesting and what we are providing. You can see at the very least that we are indicating all the same quantity of signs along the front of the building. Again, with the relocation of the one facing I-690 in a different location. And this just goes down through the sizes and the areas in comparison to what we are presenting currently. You'll notice what the brand initially wanted was 914 square feet, and we've reduced that down to 434, which brings us under the size requirement for at least facing Hiawatha. Again, we're looking to seek that quantity variance, given the fact that we made such a strong effort to get underneath that area. Stellantis has given us it has essentially informed us that at this point they do not think any additional reduction in signage size is going to be viable for their brand. So that would have repercussions to the dealer itself at that point. And if you would like, just going through the individual signs real quick. So this was the manufacturer required sign at 30 foot tall. We reduced down to the 20 foot to try to bring that number down significantly, especially with pylon signs. They count on both sides. With the Chrysler Dodge Ram sign, same deal. They wanted the large, extra large, and we're bringing it all the way down to the small to be in the same scale with the 20 foot as the Jeep sign. Here are all the different sizes for the size requirements for each particular brand. Again, they were seeking to have all the signage in this category, and we have for the building at least, and we have pushed everything down to this medium size right in here, again, to try to hit that square footage requirement. Same thing with service. They wanted the large. We provided the small/medium. Also is true with the dealer required signage, reducing those. The exception in this entire presentation was the sign facing I-690. We did increase the size, And that was primarily due to the fact that since it wasn't going to be up so high, it was being brought down towards the parking lot level and towards the front of the building. We wanted to make it larger to be more prevalent for everyone coming that direction to make sure that they can safely get onto the site. And I do have just the 2 signs on the used car building indicated, but again, they don't have any bearing on the variance because it's a separate building, and those are well within the thresholds for the requirements. Any questions that I can answer?
Thanks for the recap. There's a lot of history in that, so thanks for going through it. Questions for the applicant?
All right, and we've done this since June, so again, you're terrific, and you give us great visuals on how the conversation between staff and your companies have brought the size down. So one of the questions we had was the Stellantis, since they took ownership of what we view as Chrysler, Dodge, Ram, Jeep, you brought letterhead. That's terrific.
Yep.
And Stellantis is a creation between Fiat, Chrysler, and PSA of Europe, right?
Yes, there's, I think, 13 different brands under Stellantis umbrella, but the most predominant is Chrysler, Dodge, Jeep, Ram, Fiat, and I think Ferrari and a couple other ones are in that intermix. Maserati, I think, is in there as well.
But the whole reason for
Yep.
your structure between the 2 buildings is the signage is important to the corporation to maintain those traditional signs for cars.
Correct.
Okay. And you have scaled them back to fit that area.
Yes, to meet their requirement while trying to be a good neighbor and meet the requirements of the zoning commission.
Okay, and I'm asking this because this is for the record for all of us. You're not on the traditional car dealer row, but you are in an area that has another separately owned car franchise.
Right across the road, yes.
Okay.
Yep.
And just for your benefit and the public, we did once deal with another car franchise that wanted a tower, and that tower also did not pass because it didn't meet the zoning. See, and they're smiling.
Yeah. I think it might have been the same one too,
Well, again-
because there was a different architect at that time.
Different architect, but
Yeah.
you know, again, the rules are the rules.
Yep,
So
yep.
Thank you for meeting us
Yes.
on the road. Maybe you feel like it's more than halfway, but we greatly appreciate it. So the last question is, the directional signs you're saying are critical to the manufacturers, that each of the internal signs is something that they absolutely need a number.
So we, for the McGuire's themselves, they like to have wayfinding signage on the site. But what the manufacturer was requesting was to have wayfinding signage that also had their branding on it, which we felt wasn't in the spirit of truly being wayfinding for such a large 17-acre campus. So hence we had requested from them at that point, hey, this is too much. We're already over the limit on number of signs. Can we focus on what is important to you to sell cars and feel like your brand is properly being represented? And so that's how we negotiated with them down to the point that we're currently at.
Okay. And again, for the record, just so you know, we have the same conversation with healthcare facilities and hospitals
Yeah.
about directional signs, so
Yep.
it's not just cars.
Yep.
But again, thank you for the effort.
Not a problem.
Additional questions?
Just a question for staff. Did we ever find out if any of the signs in the nearby properties facing I-690 were ever approved by this body or the zoning administrator? We don't? Okay. Thank you.
Okay, I think we're all set. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much.
Are there individuals who would like to speak in favor of this application? If so, please come to the podium, provide your name and address and comments. Is there anyone who would like to speak in opposition to the application? If so, please come forward. I don't see anyone rising to speak either way. The presentation has been completed. I think we are now in the position to close this public hearing. And so we will do so. This hearing is closed, and we are in a position to entertain a motion for action on AS-22-08.
Motion to approve with a negative declaration.
Second.
Thank you both. Discussion? If there is no discussion, then all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed, say nay. Any abstentions? AS-22-08, the sign waiver application is approved. And there he is. Thank you again for working to accommodate your project within the rules that we have. Thank you. Our next application, please.
The next public hearing is also a continuation. This is from July 18th and August 8th. This is SP 2208, a special permit for a restaurant at 910, 912, as well as a property at 913 to 915 Park Street, which is the parking lot proposal. House SY1 LLC is the owner and Sean Nelson is the applicant, and both lie within a Business Class A zoning district. My report from the Board of Zoning Appeals is that they approved the area variance to relieve the applicant of the restrictions for the required residential parking. So they needed 7 spots, and those are waived. So now there are 11 spots across the street for the restaurant as a result of that waiver.
Good evening. My name's William Pitcher, Pitcher Architect, 124 Fiegel Avenue. What you have in front of you is the revised documents that were presented to the Zoning Board of Appeals. And just want to mention that specifically the language of the description that food and alcohol will be stopped being served at 10 o'clock and closing time will be 11 o'clock. So those are the modified hours, and that was put in the zoning variance application. Regarding the second page, you have some photographs of the 4 streets at the intersection that were taken on a Friday noon, a Sunday noon, and a Monday evening. And basically, there are 2 houses adjacent to this property that don't have driveways, but just about every other building on the 4 street blocks have off-street parking. So you see, basically, we've got 2 or 3 cars in the entire length of the block in any direction. So there appears to be ample on-street parking, which would not impinge on the residents. In the revised drawings, on drawing C1, the only change was to show the enlarged kitchen area on the floor plan at the upper right. There was no change on the survey drawing L2.
L2?
Or I mean L1.
Oh, okay.
And on L2, the changes, the one change you were interested in was the fence along the parking lot across the street. And we went back and forth on that with the zoning. And basically, it's going to be changed to a 6-foot opaque fence along the property line. And we're doing some modification to the mounting post, so we will have the 3 feet of passage, which will span both properties. But so that's the little change in the right-hand part of the parking lot, and there's more details. On A1, there was concern that a limited kitchen wouldn't draw the right clientele. And so this is basically towards their long-term plans of being a full-service restaurant and expanding. So in the kitchen, instead of just microwaves and hot air fryers, we're doing a full griddle top fat fryers underneath the commercial hood with the additional plumbing and equipment. So that's the change on A1, the expanded kitchen layout to provide larger selections of food. On the following drawing, A2, there are no changes. And on A3 on the right-hand side is the new fence details. So that basically brings us to the end of the changes. And In summary, we have a parking lot of 11 spaces available for the restaurant, and the hours have been set, closing hours has been set for 11 o'clock. Are there any questions?
I have a couple, Bill, to confirm, because this is new to them. Two things. One, the hours of operation, then the letter says when it will end, but can you confirm which days and the specific hours?
Yeah, I'll have the applicant do that.
Okay. And then the second question is, we were never aware of any live music or entertainment, and that is a deviation and would need a waiver, so that has not been,
Discussed, okay.
okay,
I'll have the
All
applicant
right.
talk about that.
thank you.
My name is Sean Nelson. I live at 108 Hobart Ave, Southside 13205. I'm the owner, applicant, me and my fiance Chanel, of a lounge we're opening called Taste of Brooklyn Lounge. We want to serve food. I'm from Brooklyn, New York. And we just want to bring a different, diverse type of culture of food to Syracuse, from all different backgrounds. We propose to start, I don't have the hours written down. We propose to start, I believe, from 11 to 3 doing a brunch, and then from 3 on to 10 doing a dinner, and closing at 11. We will be closed on Monday, so we'll be open from Tuesday to Sunday.
Thank you.
11 to 11, every day except Monday.
The other question she was asking was the entertainment and live music aspect. Can you like expound on
I was going to get a, what do you call it? A jukebox to play music in the background. Sometime I might have an outside, either I have, like a band or something like that, play musical instruments, or a disco jockey or anything like that.
So I just want to confirm, a jukebox or a radio playing or TVs is not live or electrically amplified. It would be any live entertainment or electrically amplified entertainment would not be permitted, not without requesting a waiver, because it is within 300 feet of a residential district, and that has not been advertised nor discussed before. So just to be clear, this proposal does not include any live or electrically amplified entertainment.
We wish to modify the proposal to include the entertainment.
Does that mess up the
I
public
would
hearing?
say that then you would need to hold this open, and it would need to be re-advertised, and
In fairness, just a second, I thought we had a conversation about entertainment or live music before. I thought it was in the record before.
well, I did just check the application. It's not checked in the box, and we did not list it as a deviation. I do see it on this new sheet that Mr. Pitcher just handed out.
Okay. And
So,
you guys didn't have that obviously prior to.
what's that?
You didn't have that prior to now, obviously.
No,
Okay.
So you're saying it wasn't part of our public notice?
no.
Well, it would seem if we have received some written comments that were in opposition. So it would seem if there was a piece of the project that wasn't advertised, we probably should give people the chance to comment.
Well, yes, because this application is online for people to view,
Right.
and it doesn't indicate any live or electrically amplified entertainment. There is a box for people to check if that is proposed, and I just checked, it's not.
Okay.
I mean, one possibility would be to pursue tonight what we have, and if down the road, if this were to pass, they could always submit whatever modification if they receive their restaurant, right?
Correct.
That would be another option if we pursue what we have now, they could always come back at a later date to ask about the electronic entertainment.
Yes. Live.
Excuse me. We're agreed to eliminate the entertainment thing and just go with the rest of the proposal for tonight, and we'll come back later for entertainment.
Thanks for that clarification. We were, I think, in the process of having questions for the applicant or the representative, so let's continue from the commission members before we look for the additional public input.
I have one question regarding the site design. The city's transportation planner had in his notes that the curb cut leading to the courtyard area needed to be replaced with a full reveal curb, and extend the proposed limits of the new curbing to include this area. He also noted, but I think this might have been changed, that the area shown as grass on the plans, but keyed as concrete pavers in the numbered notes. But I think it appears as though the note and the drawing now are consistent.
Yes, those items are. The new curbs were beefed up on drawing L2, so you can see the dark lines where the new curbs are, and the lighter lines are where the existing curbs are.
Well, his comment seems to relate to that. It says the curb cut leading to the courtyard, which I assume is this little indentation.
Yes,
The curb cut leading to the courtyard area that will be turned to grass is to be replaced with a full reveal curb.
correct, that's number 5. That's work proposed.
Oh, so this little piece is the quote courtyard.
Yep,
Ah, I was reading that whole setback is the courtyard. I see now. Okay.
no, the rest of the curb is a full-height curb beyond the curb cut.
Okay, but then his second note is that the area shown as grass on the plans, but keyed as concrete pavers in the numbered notes. So that would be
That
number
was corrected.
So it is going to be concrete pavers.
No,
Number 3.
it's the F5. It's going to be grass. That little, where the curb cut is removed.
No, the courtyard. The little indentation,
Yeah,
it's shown as 3 here. Remove existing asphalt, install new blah, 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 concrete pavers.
right.
So it was apparently,
There
I'm
were-
reading this as relating to the courtyard. You were reading
Yeah.
it as the traditional planting strip area?
Yeah, what happened was there were pavers between the sidewalk and the curb cut, which was removed. That was what he was asking for. So now we have more grass there, rather. I had pavers coming all the way down to the curb.
And you still
the
do
area.
have them flanking the main entrance though as well?
Yes, I don't think he was concerned about that.
But the ordinance requires that that planting strip be consistent along the frontage of the property, correct, staff? It's supposed to be a planting strip, or where it's number 2, concrete pavers?
For special permits for a restaurant, there is a requirement to establish an 8-foot buffer landscaping area as measured inward from the property line.
Yes, and the property line is at the face of the building almost. It's about a 1-foot offset.
Right, so you have, I assume, lawn. But closest to the intersection, you've got pavers. That's what
Yeah.
I'm checking with staff. So that would still be a waiver if it's being presented this way.
Well, it looks like there's concrete pavers in the right of way.
Yes. But that's a deviation, because the landscape strip does not go from essentially the intersection south. There's pavers, again, flanking the entrance to the building, both up against the building, but also at the
Well,
curb.
it's inward from the property line. All of this is shown in the right of way that I can see.
Oh, I'm sorry, I see what you're saying.
So
Gotcha.
Is not their property.
Right, I understand, okay. But Neil was asking for this to be reestablished.
Correct.
There we go.
And that should,
Got it,
yes.
all right. Forget my point. I'm on the right page right now. I was getting confused for a minute. Okay, so, so again, the curb cut leading to the courtyard, you've addressed, that note's been rectified, and you changed the screening of the parking lot. Is it a wood fence or is it a,
Wood fence.
okay, thank you.
Other questions for the applicant?
All set, thank you.
Thank you. Are there individuals who would like to speak in favor of this application? If so, please come to the podium. Provide your name and address for the record and your comments.
Good evening. My name's Andrea Wandersee. I'm the Executive Director of NIDA. We do community development on the north side. Our address is 101 Gertrude Street. And I'm here to speak in support of the applicant. I believe earlier in this process, NIDA and some of the neighbors had concerns about the project. We reached out to Mr. Nelson and his fiance. We've had some really great conversations with them about some of the parking issues and some of the sort of technical issues, but more importantly, the impact this project might have on the community. We found that they were very receptive to talking with us. We are aware of the sort of long-term vision to make it very focused on food as opposed to just a bar. We are aware of an entertainment interest, and certainly our small business facilitator, Dallas Bryson's been working very closely with them and will continue to do so. But I just wanted to say that Anita supports this project. I'm also under the impression that Mr. Jonathan Link Logan sent a letter in support, which would be rescinded from an earlier concern letter, and I wanted to make sure you're aware of that. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Other individuals who wish to speak in favor of this application, please come forward. Is there anyone who wishes to speak against the application? If so, please come to the podium. It does not appear as though we have any additional speakers.
Do you have the letter from Jonathan Logan?
Logan?
Letter of support.
Short answer is yes, I do.
Okay, I have the letter, so that's good.
Yeah, I don't see it.
I think
Andrea, do you recall when the letter was sent or when it was dated?
Well, I know it was available for the zoning board of appeals. I don't know if it goes on automatically to this process, and perhaps I'm mistaken in that. I said,
that's an interesting or something.
Dallas is looking for it.
Yes, because you have to remember, those are two different distinct things. Although we're reviewing this comprehensively for the intensity of the land uses combined, there's very different things that this board and the BZA are looking at. So
But if the letter addressed,
sometimes when people comment, they may not realize that and go to one board or the other. So it's probably what happened.
so if somebody had the letter here, though, they could read it into the record?
Sure, absolutely, yep, yep.
While people search for a minute, I have a question regarding one of the required, what would be a required waiver, which is that the proposal for the 3.5-foot fence, it's now a 6-foot fence, so would that waiver still be needed?
Not as long as it's an opaque fence and the 6-foot portion does not encroach within any required front yard,
Okay,
which I don't think it does, but I would have to verify that.
okay, thank you.
I guess I don't. I saw something.
Yes, please. Thank you.
My name is Dallas Bryson, and I work with NITA at 101 Gertrude Street. I have a letter here from Jonathan Link Logan, who had previously sent a letter of concern. I am writing to share my support for the Taste of Brooklyn component of the revised application before you today. At your last meeting, I spoke against the proposal because of what was stated in the application. Since that meeting, I have had the opportunity to talk on several occasions with the applicant, Sean Nelson, and his fiancée, Chanel Pickard, who are the business owners. They shared their history with this particular property, as well as their vision and plan for Taste of Brooklyn. I know they have been working with Dallas Bryson, small business facilitator at NITA, to revise their application to accurately reflect what Taste of Brooklyn will be upon opening. I believe this vision will be a contributing business for the neighborhood and position Sean and Chanel as best as possible for success. As a neighborhood resident living near the proposed business, I support the revised application.
Can you note the date of that letter, please?
Thursday, August 25th.
Okay, thank you.
Can you forward that to the zoning inbox? zoning@seargov.net. Thank you.
Okay, one last call. Any additional speakers for this application or against this application? If you wish to comment, please come forward now. I see no additional speakers, so we will close this public hearing and entertain a motion for action on SP-22-08, the special permit on Park Street. Is there such a motion?
Chairman, I'll begin the motion, open to collaboration with the rest of the commission. My understanding is that there was originally a waiver for 39 off-street parking spaces, but now that's down by 11, so it's 28. Is that correct? The waiver would be for 28 off-street parking spaces. So move approval of the negative declaration granting the following waivers. A waiver of 28 off-street parking spaces. Per the discussion on the record about the curb cut and the pavers, understand that there can't be any blockage of a right-of-way, waiver of the driveway location, waiver of the driveway opening, waiver of distance requirements. Open to another motion if there's any amendment of that waiver.
I'm fine with that.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Is there discussion on the motion?
Did you want to address number 23?
Or if you'd like to tell me what might still be out there, I'd be glad to address that.
The minimum 8 feet in width measured inward from the property line for the entire length of the sidewalk shall be reserved for landscape treatment. This is specific to the parking lot. That is still a waiver. The screening of the fence is not, if it is a 6-foot-high solid fence and does not encroach into any required front yard. So A is still there, B is not there anymore, and C is still there. The parking area has
So
to be.
you're saying the deviation for C, for example, would be restaurant parking area maintained at least 10 feet from the residentially used.
Yes, it's right up against the house.
Okay, so that's pre-existing condition. So we, again, amending my motion.
Submit to the commission that any parking that has been taking place on that property has not been legally reviewed or approved.
Right.
Whether it's existing or not, it has not been a legal parking.
So for 23, B is eliminated.
Right.
Because
You're
that was
saying-
the fencing.
So A, the minimum of 8 feet in width for the length of the sidewalk, that is still a requested waiver. That's A section. I'd include that in my motion. As for 23 sub C, at this point in good faith, I'm gonna move to grant the waiver distance for the parking. Thank you.
Yep.
Do you need another second?
So the motion's been amended. Does the seconder accept the changes?
Second.
Okay. Any discussion on the amended motion?
Just to clarify, if this goes ahead to approval, that the applicant be reminded in whatever formal paperwork that the amplified and live music is expressly not included, and they'd have to come back.
Correct.
Thank you for that clarification. Any further discussion? If not, then all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, say nay. Any abstentions? The special permit application for Park Street, SP-22-08 is approved. To our next public hearing, please.
Next public hearing is R2229. This is also a continuation from August 8th. This is a re-subdivision to align 2 properties into 2 new lots at 106 and 108 Dewitt Road. Sarah Maffei and John Kane and Lisa Kane are the owners and applicants. Properties lie within a residential class A1, and the applicant was not present at the last meeting.
Good evening, I'm John Kane. I reside at 106 DeWitt Road. I apologize for not being here last time. I've never done anything like this, and I didn't know I had to be present. Hopefully I'm not here for too much comic relief. Long and short of it, from the corner of our house to the property line between myself and Miss Maffei, it's about 8.5 feet. We'd like to purchase 4 feet from her and widen our driveway.
Thank you. We do take attendance. And it's helpful to have the applicant or representative
I see.
just to kind of confirm details and authenticate the application and also respond to questions if they should come up. So we'll move to that right now and see if the commission has any questions on this re-subdivision. Okay. You might be in and out quick. Thank you. Are there individuals who would like to speak in favor of this application? If so, please come forward. Is there anyone who wishes to speak in opposition to the application? Please come to the podium. Provide your name, address, and comments. No one is moving to speak, in which case we can close this public hearing and entertain a motion on the proposed re-subdivision on Dewitt Road, R-22-29.
Move approval with a negative declaration.
Okay.
Discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed, say nay. Any abstentions? Re-subdivision's approved. Thank you very much for joining us. Our next public hearing, please.
The next two public hearings are companion pieces. The first is a re-subdivision. They're both continued from August 8th. This first one is R2237. This is a re-subdivision to combine two properties into one new lot at 3902 to 3916 and 3922 South Salina Street. ARG AR 16 PCK 001 LLC is the applicant, and Gail Craig Thompson is the applicant. Sorry, the other entity is the owner. And both properties lie within a business class A zoning district. The next companion piece is the special permit for a restaurant, SP 2204, at 3902 to 3916 and 3922 South Salina Street. ARG AR 16 PCK 001 LLC is the owner, and Gail Craig Thompson is the applicant. And again, the properties lie within a business class A zoning district.
Thank you. And as people will note, this involves two separate but related applications that we will hear concurrently. And when it comes time for action, we will act on each one separately. But it makes sense to discuss them together because they're so interrelated. So with that, the applicants are here. If you provide your name and address and updates to the project.
Yeah, my name is Wayne Thompson. I'm at 233 Kirk Ave in Syracuse, New York, 13205.
And I'm Gail Craig Thompson, the applicant also.
So I think last time when you made the initial presentation, there were some questions. We also had, I think there was feedback from the public. There was also feedback from some of the city departments on several points, and I'm not sure you had seen the comments from the city departments at that time. So,
Yeah.
Okay. So are you in a position now to address some of those comments that were made by the city departments?
And just to interrupt, in addition, you had asked that the architect or a representative come to address the deviations if they were not aware or able to.
Yeah.
Well, we spoken with our architect, Jim Niddle, and everything has been satisfied. The curve cut has been done previously. And the site planner has approved the parking lot.
The DPW planner.
We are talking about, okay, 6,
Just for sake of
7, 8,
clarification,
9, 10.
the revisions to the site plan that I received today were primarily for issues in the city right-of-way. The manner in which those revisions were illustrated on the site plan essentially reduced the number of illustrated parking spaces from 23 to 21. And then it reduced one of the deviations with respect to the driveway. So for the Planning Commission, in your report, item 14 should reflect 21 off-street parking spaces being illustrated. Items 15 and 17 can be scratched. The rest of the deviations that I emailed to you on August 9th remain.
Jeff, say which ones no longer are an issue?
15 and 17.
Items 15 and 17 are scratched off. They no longer are deviations. Item 14, the site
revised.
plan illustrates 21 off-street parking spaces now instead of 23.
Which is,
And as I'm also recalling from the last time, it was also the deviations. that we asked you to address, as we do all applicants, to provide a rationale for what aspects of the project deviate from the standard zoning rules. So that's when we were thinking that your architect would be here to help go through that. But if you're conversant with them, that's fine too. You can just kind of walk us through. But there are now 8 waivers required under the project as proposed.
I don't see how 17 doesn't apply. This drawing seems to show both curb cuts on Valentine still.
No, it's curb cut has been done.
Okay, maybe it's just his drawing then.
I agree, the site plan still illustrates asphalt where the old driveway used to be. The pictures attached to that site plan do show that the previous driveway has been closed in.
Okay, so he didn't, yeah, it's more the way the drawing shows the islands. It makes it seem like, I understand now, okay.
Quick question, are you guys aware of all deviations?
Well, we aware of some, which was Jim, our architect, told us in this told us. And from my understanding is that everything that y'all wanted done has been satisfied. I mean, that's what he told us.
Yep, so we had emailed you the deviations after the last meeting because a representative wasn't here to go through them. And the commission, in order to make an informed decision, needs to hear the justification for all of those waivers that are necessary from someone, whether it's the design professional or because you're here tonight. We can give you the list again and you can go through them if that's helpful.
Yeah. I would recommend you guys sit with him and have him explain each deviation to you, and then how you can justify why you need the deviation. Do you understand that? Because we can't make a decision.
Right.
Or instead of that person telling the applicants to tell us if the applicant were available, or the design professional was available to come here and provide
We
that.
gotta get him on the phone, none of that.
Hold on, we're trying to work with you.
Right.
So I guess the next thing would be for you guys to convey to him that it would be in both you guys' best interest as his client for him to be present to clarify and fully understand what we're asking and
Right.
how that can be best explained. You
Right,
follow?
because we don't.
Because you're not familiar, and like right now you're like sitting ducks basically. So I would just ask that you guys do your best to have him present so that he can explain this both to us and to you guys to the best of his ability as a professional. So
You're the business owner, but he's you run the business, but he's the design expert. So we can either provide that list of the deviations and waivers that would be required for the project as it now stands, and ask you to go through those 8 or 9 items, whatever it is, to provide the rationale. Or if you're not up to speed on those waivers or comfortable doing that, we could ask you to ask him or her, whoever it is, to come and provide that kind of additional detail for the project, the physical details pertaining to the site itself rather than the nature of the business per se.
So 2 of them has been taken care of, and now it's 8?
It seems to be.
I think what we should do is give you a list again of the waivers that the staff review indicated would be required to implement this project as you have proposed it. and we could cross off the two, number 15 and number 17, that no longer seem to apply to the project, and the remaining ones are the ones that the design expert would need to address. And we have a copy, hard copy here tonight that we could share with the applicants, or could we, soon after this meeting, resend by email or some other method?
Sure, we will send it and
Okay.
eliminate those two.
Okay. So we'll get you a cleaned up list, taking away the ones that you don't need to worry about because they're no longer relevant. But ask that this person be prepared to provide a rationale for the other items that still remain on the list that are not in sync with the standard zoning ordinance.
Okay.
And you saw with the other folks that sometimes having that other person here, the applicant and the representative can all talk. There may be something that maybe is not necessary for you folks to operate, and you can always come back if you have to make a change.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Thank you.
So obviously, we will continue to hold this hearing open, but since it was advertised, I will call for people who wish to speak in favor of the application, and likewise those who wish to speak against. So let's start, as we always do, with those who wish to speak in favor of the application. If you want to make comments in that regard, please come to the podium, provide your name and address and comments. I'm not seeing anyone respond to that call, so now if anyone wishes to speak in opposition to the application, come forward, provide your name and address and your comments.
Hello, Richard Bartlett, 6060 Court Street Road, Syracuse, New York. We own the property next door to this location, and as it is now, how they're operating, we're having significant problems with them using our parking lot already by adding another restaurant or whatever it is. We believe it's going to cause more of a problem for us. We've already had issues at night with the people and the parking.
Where's your property, to the south?
3930. It's the Burger King along with all the parking behind there. And it's creating a real problem as they're operating now.
Okay, thank you.
It's 3930 to the south, sorry.
Yeah.
It's to the south.
I think
Yeah,
so.
immediately south, because north is
I
the
would think
street,
so.
The
Valentine.
intersection would be north.
Okay,
So
then it is.
south.
It is south and behind them. So it's a large parking lot that we just remodeled the restaurant last year, closed off the back because the city asked us to, so people couldn't walk through. And it's a problem, and we'd like, we're willing to work with them, but to have a venue that can hold concerts and live music and only has 23 parking spots, doesn't make much sense.
When you say work with them, can you just explain like what you mean by that?
I don't know, but, I mean, we've got to clean up our parking lot. What was it, last week we had to call the cops because someone came over from there and got tased in the restaurant, so. I have no problem having a restaurant there or it has nothing to do with the competition. It's the use of the parking lot and late at night and the problems that are starting to creep up, I don't know what working with them would be. I don't know if I need to put up no parking signs. No one likes to get their car towed, but I can't have what's going on at night in the lot as it is.
And you have access off of Valentine as well?
Yes,
as
we do.
Salina? Okay. I
We
see.
considered closing that, but people do come through and use the drive-through there.
Okay.
So, I mean,
And we do recall the application you had to renovate the building and
Yeah.
the parking lot. We recall that, yes.
yeah, so, yeah, no problem. Thank you.
Thank you.
Are there other individuals who wish to speak in opposition to the application? If so, please come forward.
Kathy Coolidge, Beverly, 316 Monticello Drive North. I spoke last time, I submitted quite a bit of information. I'll just go back over some of the key points. Basically, this proposed nightclub, I also point out this is a banquet location. That's how they're advertising it. So that's a day use and a night use, both. Does not fit the site because of the lack of parking. Now we have 21 versus 107, and there are resultant hazards from that. The shift to parking to nearby businesses, as you just heard, impinges on the operation of those businesses in the day and at night. And there's concentrated pedestrian activity at closing times and opening times. There's an erratic high-speed traffic in the area, and it's going to introduce dangers for pedestrians and vehicles alike. This use would essentially spew vehicles and pedestrians out throughout the neighborhood, uncontrolled, basically. So I don't have the redesign of the parking lot that you guys just got, so I can speak to those things. But the design that had previously been submitted created additional issues with Valentine Road and openings and curb cuts and things like that. The proposed use is not in harmony with the area as it introduces live music within 300 feet of residential areas, both single and troubled multifamily housing, Valentine Gardens, troubled. If a special permit is granted, this can continue under subsequent owners, and impacts may become worse than is being presented by the current applicant. It also has a use which has potential to exacerbate disorderly social incidents in a vulnerable neighborhood, as well as increasing the pressure from parking and traffic in a busy and dangerous intersection. Hours of operation, and there are reports the facility has been operating past midnight, so there's doubt about the 7 to 11 time frame. It is already operating, is what I understand. Facility also intends to operate during the day. Parking pressures may be more intense in the day versus the evening due to all the other businesses operating. Okay, so we have hundreds of people trying to park within operating businesses and into other parking lots. I mentioned before inadequate staffing and site control. The applicant states there will be only 2 staff on the site. This is inadequate to service a large crowd of 138 is this capacity, or to control the site in the building. I mentioned before food delivery and conflicts with parking. There's no kitchen on site. They intend to depend on food delivery by patrons or caterers. Deliveries to the front door, which is the current practice, have and will conflict with the only parking spaces that oppose the entry. I guess, again, I don't have a new site plan. And then I also want to mention ride-sharing services, which might be driving up through that area. I brought up before the issues with the no food, alcohol consumption, a location that has just alcohol, and no food causes problems for the patrons as well as the general issues. And then I would just mention that the buffer to South Salina Street is undersized, and I understand you can give waivers for that, but I would just point out there's a lot of pedestrian traffic on South Salina Street. So I think it's an area where it really needs to have that buffer. Given all these issues, I urge you to deny this special permit application. I will turn this in.
If you have a written statement, please feel free to leave it with the staff. And just confirmation that the additional material that we received tonight from the applicant will be added to the zoning office project file for this application, right? And anyone is available to access that file for review, as with any application we're dealing with. Are there other individuals who would like to speak against this application? If so, come to the podium, please.
Good evening. My name is Leslie Green. I live on Atlantic Avenue, and my concern is safety. If the applicants are willing to modify their petition and create or build into their plan a safety plan, which is security at night. A lot of people walk. We have people in wheelchairs, electric chairs running up and down the street. We have children in that area. It's very heavily foot trafficked. So my concern is safety and security at night, people under the influence, and just large crowds. You never know what's going to happen. I commend you for having your own business, but we just want safety in the neighborhood. Thank you.
Thank you. Other individuals who wish to speak in opposition to the application, please come forward.
My name is Trudy Udell, and I'm a resident. I live a block away from where they're going to open the business. My concern is this. We are trying to get a grocery store to come into the area. Hopefully, we can get the hours from 7 to 11. And I just want everything to be safe for the people that needs a grocery store in the area. So my concern is that how, the crowd control, people going backwards and forth. A lot of people from the apartments will be coming to the store if it do happens. We have a drugstore there, Walgreens. Walgreens is thinking about leaving the plaza. If that happens, there's not going to be a large business in the area. So I feel like the restaurant nightclub will not help our situation at this time. Thank you.
Thank you. Other individuals who may wish to speak in opposition to the application, please come forward. I don't see anyone else indicating they would like to speak. As I mentioned earlier, we will hold this hearing open for the clarification and points requested earlier, but...
One question of staff.
Sure.
One of the speakers mentioned the property being used as a banquet facility. Is that different under our definitions from a restaurant? And would it impact the parking numbers?
Well, it would have to be a restaurant. It would have to fit the definition of a restaurant in order to have a special permit. So if there's other uses and this was being rented out separately, we had already discussed that with the architect, that would not be permitted. But if there's, if it's a room in the back that people come and as part of the restaurant, and an ancillary, like when you have a big group of people,
Right.
That's part of the permitted use. So I'm not sure what was meant by banquet. I would have to find out more details about that, but in general, it must fit the definition of a restaurant in order to be eligible to apply for a special permit.
And we are calling it a restaurant,
Yep, that's what it's proposed. Right?
Yes, they are.
but there's no kitchen. So how can we have a restaurant without a kitchen?
What is it now? I mean, I have a question. What is it now?
Well, just hang on. I mean, you can come up and make comments, but hang on one second. So I'm asking in terms of the definitions that we have to operate by.
Right, it doesn't appear that there is a kitchen on the floor plan. And we had mentioned that, and I
Right.
think.
And I remember talking about this before, but it's just hit me now.
Yeah,
However we defined restaurant in the zoning ordinance,
yeah, there's no, I mean, it doesn't say there has to be a kitchen.
but it's sort of implicit. But
And I think at the last hearing, the applicant talked about serving food, serving meals. I believe one of the speakers said they couldn't wait to have the wonderful meals that you would be cooking. But it does remain the fact that there's no kitchen on the floor plan.
Well, but if we don't, in the zoning ordinance, not we, if the zoning ordinance isn't explicit in the definition of a restaurant having a kitchen, again, it seems implicit, but.
It's the retail consumption of food and or beverage.
Consumption of, not preparation and consumption, just consumption.
Paired offsite.
Because if it's not, then I'm wondering why are we even giving them a restaurant? Right? I mean, then it could be a banquet facility that
Okay.
cater in.
Would you like me to read it?
How many pages is it?
No, it's not that long.
Yeah, it just.
All right, so here's our definition of restaurant, just for clarification for you. Any place or establishment open to the general public, designed, intended, or used in whole or in part for the retail sale and consumption on premise of food and or beverages. Blah, blah, blah. But there's nothing that states that there must be a kitchen.
As an aside, perhaps we should check rezone.
Logically,
For that.
it might, but
Because it would seem that a banquet facility, you could cater, but in a restaurant, again, it seems, anyway, we should check that for that other project. Thank you for that and indulging me, everyone. Okay. Additional comments?
What are they operating as now? And also, when we went and applied for our restaurant permit, by the number of seats or your occupancy, you have to have certain amount of parking spaces and handicap spaces. At 138, if that's what I thought I heard someone say the occupancy was, I don't know that 23 is going to cover that. You know, subtract at least 2 handicap spots.
That's one of the issues at hand, that's one of the waivers that we referred to earlier, has to do with parking, and the application's request to waive a number of parking spaces. So that all gets into the mix as all of this is considered, which is why we wanted to have the architect address some of these issues that really do have to have design implications or flow from design implications, and thought that person would be in the best position to respond to those questions and provide the rationale that we need. So we're working, and the applicants, I think, are working with us to help us get that information, and we'll consider that at a subsequent meeting.
What, do you know what they're operating as now?
It shouldn't be in
A what?
operation. It shouldn't be in operation because the approvals haven't been granted yet.
Okay.
So I did indicate that this public hearing will be held open, but I want to also be respectful of the guidelines I set out at the outset, that where comments are made in opposition, the applicant will be given an opportunity to respond to those made in opposition. So if you choose to address some of the comments in opposition to the project, you have an opportunity to do that now as well as the next time, so.
Okay. Let's address the guy that owns the Burger King. He's saying that someone came out of our building and came to the Burger King and got tased. I mean,
Please,
Just address the parking.
let's, sir,
Speak while you speak.
this gentleman has the floor, and if you would address your comments to us, that would be helpful.
yes. Okay, he's saying that someone came out of 3902 South Line Street and went into Burger King and got tased. I mean, how can he say they came out of our building and got tased? Salina Street is a big, wide open street. You know, people walk through there every day, and I just don't understand why he even would say that when he don't know where they came from. He just using and to clarify, like we told you 3 weeks ago, we did held 2 repasses there, and they did bring us food. So that's what they talking about. And as far as people using his parking lot, we don't know if they're using his parking lot. I mean, we don't know. You see what I'm saying? So for the repass, we don't know if they're using his parking lot. I mean, and for the lady saying that she live out in Atlantic and it's safety, you have Forbes down the street, you have Walgreens, you have Dunkin' Donuts across the street, you have Colonial Laundromat across the street, you have the Elks Lodge right across the street, and you have Family Dollar right across the street from us. So y'all know what I'm trying to say. I mean, it's like everybody gets ganging up on, and we not even open yet. You know what I mean? So to me, all this doesn't make no sense to me. And they talking about safety. What can we? I mean, we have cameras all over our building. I did do that, but they talking about safety. How can we prevent something from happening outside of our building? That's. I don't understand what she's saying about safety. You know what I mean? I mean, what did she want us to do? She want us to have a security on every corner, every step of the sidewalk, so that they could go to the store. I mean, that had nothing to do with us. Nothing. I mean, I just don't understand. We don't understand why they saying safety and grocery store and that just don't make sense to me. It doesn't.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
So as indicated before, this hearing will remain open, and we anticipate it being on our next agenda, which will be September 19th. We're looking forward to the architect being able to participate in that discussion and address some of the design issues related to the application. Okay. Thank you to all the speakers, the presenters, and the individuals from the public who spoke on this application. The hearing remains open. We will move on to our next public hearing, please.
The next public hearing is SP 1115M2. This is a continuation from August 8th. This is a special permit modification to a restaurant to modify the floor plans, elevation, and site plan, and this is to build the second floor addition at 713 East Fayette Street. Food and Sundry LLC is the owner. Chris Biley is the applicant. Lies within a business class A zoning district, and last time the commission requested information and revisions to the site plan with respect to the dumpsters and the screening and enclosure of the dumpsters.
How you doing? Chris Biley, 310 Chester Road, Syracuse, New York, 13209. After review with the architects in our last hearing, we did make revisions to the drawings that should address all of the concerns. So just here for a follow-up, making sure you guys see everything, and hopefully move on. Yeah, the trash screening was one of the concerns, and I think that was the... What was our other concern? Punch the major one, right?
I believe so. Yeah, Michael Freund, Rich and Gardner Construction, 206 Plum Street. So yeah, I believe the only open item that we had was the trash enclosure and the screening thereof. I think one part that was a little confusing on the original application showed like 3 dumpsters, I think even in a photo. One of those was associated with the adjoining property on the rear. So getting that cleaned up would just be 2 for the restaurant that would be screened in that back corner, kind of utilizing the fence that already exists, vinyl slats in that, and then construction of vinyl gates on the front.
Maybe just to wrap this all up into one presentation, there's only one waiver required for this that has to do with parking, and perhaps you could just reiterate the rationale for that requested waiver for the project.
Yeah, it would be just an extension of the current waiver that's already in place for the parking, for the capacity, utilizing street parking and adjacent parking lots.
Further questions for the applicant? Good, good. Okay, thank you both very much.
Thank you.
Are there individuals who would like to speak in favor of this application? If so, please come forward. Is there anyone who wishes to speak in opposition to the application? Please come forward. See any additional speakers? We can now close this public hearing. SP-11-15M2 and entertain a motion on it.
Move approval. Move approval with a negative declaration granting the requested waiver regarding parking.
Second.
Discussion?
I just want to thank the applicant for making the modification that we requested regarding the dumpster area.
Dumpster screening.
Yes, thank you.
So noted. Other discussion? And all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed, say nay. Any abstentions? Special permit modification is approved. We move on to our next application of project site review project.
The next public hearing is PR 2127. This is a project site review for new construction at 1510 West Fayette Street. 601 Avery LLC is the owner, and Sean Corcoran is the applicant, and it lies within an industrial class A zoning district.
Ready?
All set.
Okay.
We've been waiting for you.
Oh, good evening, Commissioners. My name is Craig Polhamus. I reside at 114 East Genesee Street in Fayetteville. I am the architect for this project. Tonight with me is Ed Keplinger of Keplinger Freeman Associates, the landscape architect for this project. Also, we have Sean Corcoran, who is our client, and his business partner, Brad O'Connell. The project started way back during COVID. I know this is the first time you've seen it, but we've been working with staff all along and other groups like the Tipperary Hill Neighborhood Association to make sure that we responded to their interests and comments. After a market study was done, it was determined there is a great need for a self-storage facility that will be able to serve this area of the city. The site is zoned Industrial District Class A and was historically a train yard. The project, as I understand, complies with all the zoning parameters, and we have addressed all of the comments from the various city departments. And as I understand it, the primary determination tonight is the adjacency to the urban neighborhood district, which lies to the south of this site. This is why we have a 30-foot setback, which matches the adjacent building to the west. And we've created a series of one-story structures to mimic the residential elements and colors of the adjacent neighborhood. The site slopes down 11 feet from the street so that the building is one story high along West Fayette Street and then is 2 stories in the rear. The overall size of the main building is 270 feet long and 140 feet wide, or deep, I should say. The main building will be metal framed with a green metal roof and ash gray horizontal metal siding. The building will be fully sprinkled and conditioned. At this point, I'll turn it over to Ed Keplinger, who can talk about more of the site plan details.
Right, here's the proposed site plan.
So, I think he introduced you, but can you just give your name for the record? Give your
Sure.
name, address, thing.
Yep, Ed Keplinger, Keplinger Freeman Associates, 6320 Fly Road, East Syracuse.
Thank you.
Okay, should I just grab this? Okay, the site access will be off of West Fayette Street. In this location, along West Fayette, we're proposing new granite curbing and a sidewalk for the entirety. I don't know if you've been out there, but it's kind of a mess, so this will really clean up that area. We have 8 street trees proposed within the right-of-way. As Craig stated, the buildings are set back about 30 feet off the property line. We have some foundation plantings going in between the buildings and the street, so it's really going to provide a residential feel along the street frontage. At the access point, we'll have a pivot gate for access to the facility. This is the only point of access around the entire facility. We'll have a 6-foot height ornamental steel fence, so it's going to be a nice looking fence. Once you enter the site, we have the main storage building. Around the storage building, we have asphalt pavement. We're introducing regular impermeable asphalt, but we also have an abundance of permeable paving going in around 3 sides of the building. And then below that, we have some storm tech chambers below. So we've mitigated the storm drainage. This has all been reviewed. The SWIP and the drainage has been reviewed by the city engineer. I think that's a high-level overview of what we're proposing from a site standpoint. Are we all set? Questions?
Yeah, I guess I have a question. The city, make sure I got the right person, transportation planner noted, and this is back in May, so you may have already taken care of this. To propose trees located near the site driveway should be moved onto the property, so they're a better sight line for vehicles. Did you? I couldn't tell from this. I couldn't tell from the scale of the drawing. I had to look at it.
We may need to push those back just a little bit.
Okay, well, it's.
So we can do that.
Okay, and then asking that, obviously, then you would update the L3.2.
Sure.
Also that the planting, applicant should continue planting through the driveway and into the site. I'm not quite sure what that means, so
I'm not sure either.
I think we would probably have you discuss that with staff to make sure that we're addressing that. And the last was lighting at the entrance. Is there lighting at the entrance?
Oh, boy. I think yes, we do have lighting. Yes, we have wall packs on both sides. Yep.
So the lighting is mounted on the 2 buildings closest to the drive?
Yes. Yep.
Okay. And one other question I noticed in, let me just see if I can find it quickly, probably not, in the environmental assessment. Yep, I'm not gonna find it, but oh, there it is. That you checked yes, that there are historic properties and archaeological resources.
That was.
And that's because I'm guessing this thing that came from the State Preservation Office says so?
The state database checked it.
Right, so will there be provisions during construction? I'm assuming it's because of proximity to, it should be the railroad.
The railroad, I think the railroad.
Too far away from the canal.
Yeah,
so.
I think it's a disturbed site, significantly disturbed site.
Are there going to be provisions made pre-construction to make sure that you're not impacting any archaeological resources?
We can do that, sure.
And you probably could just contact an archaeologist who would do a quick phase 1, which is a literature search, and they might tell you there's nothing there.
I examined some of the historic maps, and there were only train tracks through the site. So the chances of finding a building foundation or something along those lines, I think would be very slim.
I'm not sure why, you might want to talk to the State Preservation Office and find out what they might know that made them check this.
Sure.
I'd hate for you to be the next people to find, the long-lost stone bridge that carried the railroad tracks in the middle of construction.
Sure.
So.
Okay.
One issue is there are vaults. There all along that railroad. There are some ancient markers there. So I think maybe that would be the reason why they checked them.
The last thing you want to do is just have to stop in the middle of construction. So, and again, if you talk to the State Preservation Office, they might tell you what specifically made them do this.
There was some subsurface investigation, and during that, nothing was found or presented. It was pretty
again, the only thing is I'd ask them
Bland.
what it was they thought would be there, and then, I mean, you could always have somebody just do
We
observation
can-
on site during
yeah.
excavation.
We can contact SHPO. Yeah, we can contact
Okay.
SHPO and see what triggered that. And sometimes it's off-site, or most of the time it's off-site.
Yeah, and
So,
having done those kinds of reviews
Oh, yeah.
myself, I couldn't tell by looking at the map,
sure.
but,
Yep.
thank you.
One question, I can't tell if it's there or not, but the transportation also asked, applicant shall applicant shall sign the Fayette Street West opening as no stopping any time on private property to prevent use of driveway as parking.
Right, and
Not quite sure.
Yeah. That he
Yeah,
wants
so
to
they're asking you to sign it,
Yeah.
saying no stopping at any time.
Yeah, I
to
think we have
deter-
that. Yeah,
deter-
I think we have that, because he also wanted signs that said end of Fayette Street, right at, yeah, so I think we took care of those.
Yep.
Just making sure, because this kind of is dating
Oh, sure.
back, so I'm just.
Sure. Oh, yeah, we probably had 3 or 4 submissions with the city department since last November, so we've been thoroughly vetted.
That's the only question, thank you.
Yeah.
Any other questions for the applicants?
Actually, somebody submitted a comment, and it says that the application indicates that the stormwater conveyance from the site will be to a City of Syracuse storm sewer.
Right.
And so the question is it a dedicated storm sewer? Is it?
Well, we've submitted the plans and the SWIP to the city engineer, and he's
Okay.
reviewed it, and,
All right,
yeah.
thank you.
This is August 25th. Lady said this.
But if they've already,
Jeffrey, right?
yeah, if it's already approved, that means that the engineering department must have considered it, so.
Okay.
Other questions?
Almost.
Great, thank you. Okay, thank you both. Are there individuals who wish to speak in favor of this application? If so, please come to the podium, provide your name, address, and comments.
You can't see me.
We know you're there. We just can't see you.
There you go.
My name is Janice McKenna. I live at 110 South Lowell Avenue on Tipperary Hill, and I own a business there. I live there, I own a business there, and I am president of the Tipperary Hill Neighborhood Association. And when John Corcoran called me, he's smart enough to know that you have a project on Tipperary Hill, the first stop is a Tipperary Hill Neighborhood Association. So he told us what he had in mind, and I was very much against it. And I said, we want houses down there. And Sean had already investigated that and said, you know, it's just not feasible. It's just not something we can do. So then he told me about his research studies about the need for storage. And I'm thinking about the 2 closets in my house and the number of people who don't have garages. And I said, okay, well, I can see that. And it might actually help us on Tipperary Hill if somebody can winter the vehicle that they don't use over the winter. So there are places for that. So we're all impressed. The entire board is impressed by the way they've responded to our concerns. You know, we didn't want just a pole barn looking thing. We wanted something to protect the street from the building, and we wanted to make sure it was going to be safe. We had questions about safety. So I contacted the chief of police and asked him if storage facilities, if there's a history of crime, and I was told no, nowhere in Syracuse is this an issue. So they were answering our questions. One thing that's not on these designs that we'd like to see is on the side of the building that faces Master Pole Murphy. That's kind of like a blank wall right now. There's been conversation about possibly putting a mural on there that's railroad related so that it has a nicer look and it also melds in a little bit more. So I told Sean we wanted to put this out to the neighborhood and let them see it. And he goes, well, just a minute, you know, we liked the second round he came back to us with, and because he'd made so many improvements. And then he goes, you know, our architects have some other ideas. When he came back to us with this facade of these homes, so these individual storage units look like little houses, and if you look across the street at South Wilbur Avenue, it's like a mirror image. never seen anything so creative in my life. So we put this, I guess you can tell I'm for it, right? We put this out to the neighborhood, and we posted on our Facebook page. We reached 3,941 people, 1,190 were engaged, 62 likes, 36 comments. There were a few people who said, we need affordable housing. Why can't we do housing on the site? So I addressed the concern, and I encouraged them to say, if there's any concerns that you have that you would like us to address with the developers before this meeting, and I encouraged them to come, let us know and we'll talk with them. So I got no emails saying, please ask them about this. But there were some concerns about safety, and I could tell them what the chief of police told us. Sean has told me we are not going to accept cash. We want to know who is renting there. We want to have a paper trail. So he's already taking steps to make sure it's safe. And I feel that, you know, while I'd love to see something else there, I think they are making the best of the property, and I think there's a real need. I reached out to Dennis Coleman, who owns Coleman's, and Coleman's is one of my clients too, and he wrote, I think it's a great idea and the facades will be great. I'm sure we'll rent one. That was Dennis's response to me. And he said he'd be happy to send a letter of support if that would be helpful. But we are, you know, I've already talked to Sean about this. I'm like, beautiful fences, you need to make sure that there's no weeds growing up between them. We want to make sure that you keep that property looking good. And that's it. So we're very much in favor.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Other individuals who wish to speak in favor of this application, please come forward.
Hi, good evening. My name's JP Carlisle. I'm the owner of the business at 201 Ulster Street, Nibs Pub. I haven't had it very long, about 6 months, but happy to be here to comment on this. One of Sean's business partners is a very old friend of mine. He reached out to me and said that the old owner, who does currently still own the building, I'm leasing to own the building, he had some concerns, as you mentioned, that housing would be a much better opportunity there. And of course it would, because it would build my customer base. But again, it's not feasible. We do like the idea of the storage facility because it's not going to bring the consistent traffic that housing development would, but it will bring consistent traffic. And I can tell you that as I look across the yard, that's directly across the street from me, there is some garbage out there, not much, but this certainly would enhance the look of the neighborhood. There's one office chair that seems to move about 30 feet about once a week, and it just kind of stays out in that field. And just like Dennis Coleman, who's a friend of mine, just as he said, I am in a 132-year-old building that has no more storage, and I'm looking forward to renting it by myself. So I'd like to speak in favor. That's it.
Thank you.
Thank you. Maybe someone will get one of those units and put the office chair in the storage unit. Other individuals who may wish to speak in favor of this application, please come forward.
I do have a verbal phone call from Councilor Hogan. He wasn't able to be here or write anything, but he did express his support for the aesthetic design of the proposal.
Okay, thank you. He often is at these hearings where a project is in his district. I was a little surprised not to see him, but he made the effort, so that will be reflected in the record. So one more call. Any other individuals who may wish to speak in favor of this application, please come forward. And if there are no further speakers of that nature, are there any individuals who wish to speak in opposition to the application? If so, come to the podium, provide your name, address, and comments. So I think all the individuals who wish to speak on this have done so. We will close this public hearing and entertain a motion for action on the project site review on West Fayette Street, PR-21-27.
Motion to approve with a negative declaration.
Second.
Discussion.
I have to point out that I think this is an incredibly creative solution to putting self-storage in a neighborhood.
Hear, hear.
And
Hear, hear.
you should be commended for that. And I appreciate in particular reestablishing the sense of a building line on the street, even if it was always railroad yards, but recognizing that you're on the opposite side of built-up neighborhood. Again, very creative, and I hope we can use this as an example with other applicants.
Okay. No further discussion? All set? In that case, all in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed, say nay. Any abstentions? PR-2127 is approved. Thank you. When do you
Thank you so
begin?
much.
When do you begin construction?
Craig, when do you begin? When does it begin? That's okay. Really,
Good.
really great.
Yeah. Brilliant. Our next public hearing, please.
Next public hearing is R 2238. This is a re-subdivision to combine two properties into one new lot at 101 to 131 South Salina Street. Douglas Development Corporation is the owner, and Norman Jamal is the applicant, and this lies within a central business district retail zoning district.
Good evening. Lindsay Habenreich from Phillips Lytle at 125 Main Street in Buffalo, New York, appearing on behalf of the applicant Douglas Development. So Douglas Development, as you may be aware, recently purchased 3 adjoining lots at 101 South Salina, which is the historic former M&T Bank building, 131 South Salina, which is the former M&T garage, and 140 East Genesee Street, which is the Larned building. So the applicant is in the process of redeveloping these 3 adjoining lots to build loft-style apartments, leasable commercial space, some additional building improvements, and to preserve and restore the exterior facade. As part of the larger project, at the end of 2021, the project received approval from the Syracuse IDA for financial incentives, and earlier this year in January, the city zoning administrator issued project site review approval for the project. As part of the discussions with city staff, there was noted a potential safety issue, and that's why we're here today to request a re-subdivision of 2 of the lots at 101 and 131 South Salina Street. So the M&T garage currently spans the parcels of both 101 and 131 South Salina Street, and as it currently stands, all of the fire access routes only move through 131 South Salina Street. So the discussions were, if these 2 parcels, which are under current ownership, if they were ever sold separately or no longer under common ownership, you're now going to have a fire safety issue. You won't have fee access to these fire safety routes. And that's why we are here today to request that these 2 lots then be redivided, consolidated. I believe a short environmental assessment form was prepared for this project, so we are here today to ask for a negative declaration as well as re-subdivision approval. And I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Very concise and clear. Are there questions for the applicant? Thank you. Are there individuals who would like to speak in favor of this application? If so, please come forward. Is there anyone who wishes to speak in opposition to the application? Please come to the podium. We have no additional speakers. We will close the hearing and entertain a motion for this re-subdivision application R-22-38.
Approval of the negative declaration. Second.
Discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed, say nay. It is approved.
Thank you so much. I appreciate your time.
Thanks for your patience. Our next public hearing.
The next public hearing is SR 0602M4. This is a site plan review for an antenna to replace 9 antennas with 6 antennas at 1654 West Onondaga Street. Catholic Charities is the owner, and Pyramid Network Services LLC is the applicant, and this lies within a split zoning district of residential class A and residential class B.
Thank you.
Good evening, Steve Fantuzzo, Nixon Peabody, appearing on behalf of my colleague Jared Lusk. 1300 Clinton Square, Rochester, New York, 14604. So as stated, it's effectively an equipment upgrade where there's removal of the 9 antennas and a replacement of those with only 6 antennas, basically effectively in the same spot. 3 are being removed entirely. No other changes to the structure or other modifications. And as the applicant has stated, and I believe some follow-up correspondence has been ongoing from my understanding, that this is an eligible facilities request, and that there's no substantial change to the physical dimension of the tower or base station, and effectively then it's been preempted by the FCC such that follow-up material requests are limited basically to whether it does fall within that standard. And my understanding is there hasn't been any of those. I believe there's been a request for a survey and some photo sims, which the applicant has followed up and stated are not relevant to determining whether it's an eligible facilities request. So effectively, we're here and looking to move this along and seek approval for the site plan as submitted.
Man, Jim?
Please.
Okay, so, and you're covering for somebody else, but we appreciate where the FCC stands, we appreciate where federal regulations stand, but our duty to make sure that Catholic Charities and every other good neighbor that allows this still make sure that even with a upgrade, and this is a technologically advanced upgrade, which is always important, still comports with that structure. Because there's still a sight line, there's still neighbors that see the building. When we ask for photo sims, it's not because we're defying any state or federal law of regulation. What we're looking for is that the equipment that's mounted will still fit within that.
And you saw the site plan?
Site plan.
And structural as well.
Simulation. Did I miss it?
Are the photos not detailed in the site plan? There's also a structural analysis that would help you out to make that determination. So.
Did I miss photo sims on this?
I didn't.
No, there's no photo sims because they're not relevant to the determination of whether it fits under an eligible facilities request.
Body, and I love what you're citing. I, during the daytime, cite a lot of footnotes, but I make them big enough for people my age to read. So let me try it again. You're a visitor. What I'm saying is what we look for is how the structure fits in the neighborhood. No municipality ever wants to hold up an upgrade in technology. For future reference, if you cover for your colleague, it's helpful for us to see a simulation of how it's going to look. It's more of a courtesy than it is any defiance of any regulation. I'm only saying is that with this body, when we oversee any development or improvement in any of the many carriers that have towers in our city, this is in a neighborhood. The Catholic Charities building is in a neighborhood, all right? We have towers at schools, we have towers at colleges. It's a courtesy just to request a photo simulation.
But it's not a requirement or a standard. It's just something you're requesting as a courtesy.
We always appreciate it, and we don't want to dig for.
Okay, I just wanted to confirm.
If we
Got
can
it.
avoid it. But staff, and we've worked with this group before. Do we have anything to assist us with the site plan?
You did request us to add that to the application as a required submittal in order to help you make an informed decision about the aesthetics of anything, especially when it's in a residential district, which this is.
Did the application predate our request?
Are the aesthetics relevant to your determination that it's an eligible facilities request?
Again, it's relevant to our duty.
But you're preempted.
It's relevant to our duty to fulfill the charter that we live under. And when you say preempted, I don't, we have a member of Corp Council here. I don't want to step on what she would normally say. But there are design professionals on the board, there are citizens on the board. Again, our application requested something that you apparently didn't provide, and you're covering for somebody else. And that's the worst feeling in the world, to be covering for somebody else, to be hearing at 8 o'clock at night that we were looking for something else.
But was it a requirement? Under what was?
It's an application requirement to the planning commission. But
You're under the wrong standard.
But it's not whether or not you can or cannot have the antennas, which I understand. You're citing everything you're supposed to cite. It's that we might have a question about where they go. You know, we might say, could you move them 5 feet back on the roof so you can't see them from the sidewalk? So it's not as though we would
Did you
say,
see the site plan placement of them?
I don't-
Nothing that would be provided would be any different than that.
Okay, but the visual simulations would be helpful for us.
They would be helpful, but they're not relevant to whether it's an eligible facilities
We're not
request.
questioning whether it's eligible.
But that's your standard, right?
But we're not questioning whether it's eligible. We're questioning how they might be installed and where they might be installed.
Again, this is the only thing I'll say on this. An application has a set of requirements. Do you understand that? Yes or no?
Do you understand? Okay.
No, you can't answer the question with a question. I'm asking you a question. Can you answer the question, please? An application has a set of requirements. Do you understand that? Yes or no?
Are you serious? Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, we appreciate your
Hold
time.
on. I got it.
Okay.
You answered that question. Thank you very much. As my colleague just said, you just said you understand that it has a set of requirements. Your application does not fit those requirements. So with that being said, that doesn't allow us to potentially even look at the application because you don't even fit the requirements. So with that being said, I'll leave it to council to go forward from there.
Yeah, if I may, I spoke with Mr. Lusk last week in regards to this. I have no problem revisiting this conversation if he wants to provide the documentation I asked him for. He sent me a snippet of a regulation, and I just asked that he show, in terms of whether or not certain documentation is required or not required, show that photo sims have been illustrated either on this matter by a core or like directly in the regulation in terms of that being something that the board can't require of you, as opposed to it being a matter of interpretation as to what those photo sims are going for, whether it's to determine its eligibility versus determine something like an aesthetic and make sure it fits with our regulations. I haven't seen anything that clearly states it's preempted yet. I'm not saying that's not the case. So if you or co-counsel wants to provide me that, I'm happy to make sure that the board acts in compliance with federal regulation. That just hasn't been brought in front of me today.
So I'm going to make a recommendation that we hold this hearing open until our application guidelines are fulfilled. If Corp Counsel would like to write a memo to explain anything that I'm overstepping, overreaching, since I was licensed in 1990, I'd be glad to read it. Thank you for your time, sir. Have a safe trip home.
I'm assuming the currents, based on comments from the commission members, I will do that. But I think the sense of the commission is to hold the hearing open. So acknowledging that, we have another speaker. I was going to ask those who wanted to speak for and those who wanted to speak against. Are you in one of those categories, or are you to amplify on the application, or introduce yourself?
Oh, this is the next
So we didn't
Oh, okay. Hold on, please.
Sure.
Are there individuals who would like to speak in favor of application SR-06-02M4, the site plan review at 1654 West Onondaga Street? If not, are there individuals who want to speak in opposition to the application SR-06-02M4? I see no additional people rising to speak, so we will hold this hearing open. We will move to our next hearing, also at the same location, different application.
Next public hearing is SR 0307M4, a site plan review for an antenna to replace 9 antennas with 6 antennas at 1654 West Onondaga Street. Catholic Charities is the owner and T-Mobile is the applicant. And again, this size within a split residential zoning district of residential class A and residential class B.
Okay.
Bryce McCullough. I'm representing T-Mobile through Centerline Communications from Rochester, New York. We're requesting acceptance of the application of the replacement of 9 antennas, correction on your application.
Wait, I'm sorry. If you could take that outside so we can hear the applicant, that would be great. What's your name again?
Bryce McCullough.
I'm so sorry. Okay,
no
too
problem.
many things going on. Hold on, just 1 second. And then, what did you say about the what I read was incorrect?
So we are replacing 7 antennas with 6, not 9 with 6.
Got it.
And that shows on the site plan as well.
Okay. All right, thank you so much. Sorry, go ahead.
So we're requesting acceptance of the application on the replacement of our antennas. It changes no aesthetics with the building. We are behind a FRP panel in the penthouse. So I move to...
So just to clarify and to distinguish between a recent application we just heard.
Yes.
The units that you were talking about in your application will not be visible at all.
Yes,
They'll be hidden.
actually, we will be improving because we have 1 antenna mounted on the outside of the penthouse right now, which we'll be removing.
And it was shown as being removed, okay.
Yes.
And all of yours will be interior to the
They will be.
state? Okay,
Hence, no simulation photo.
yes. Thank you.
Thank you for clarifying that. Thank you for clarifying the numbers as well.
At one point, though, the Preservation Board staff just made a note that anything that's on the outside that should be removed, even if you're not going to be using it.
Yes, all
it should
equipment will be removed.
Thank you.
Further questions for the applicant?
All set.
Is there anyone who would like to speak in favor of this application? Please come forward. Is there anyone who would like to speak in opposition to the application? Please come to the podium. We have no further speakers. We will declare the hearing closed and entertain a motion on the project site review for SR-03-07M4 at 1654 West Onondaga Street.
Motion to approve with a negative declaration. Also that the request of the site preservation board are met.
Okay.
Second.
Discussion? All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Those opposed, say nay. Any abstentions? The site plan review is approved for SR-03-07M4. Thank you.
Thank you.
Patience. I think that exhausts our public hearings, but not necessarily all our business.
Yes, so you have an old business item, SR 2107M1. This is a site plan review for an antenna, and this is to modify the site plan for equipment. And this is at 1502 Erie Boulevard East. Stephen Shahadi is the owner, and American Tower is the applicant. Lies within an industrial class A zoning district, and last time you had requested that the representative come and give you some more details about the proposal.
Good evening. My name's Jeff Skolnick. I can spell that for you if you want. It's SZKOLNIK. I'm with Network Building Consulting representing American Tower. So, like I said, or like I heard, it's been here before. I'm filling in for our guys down in Philly. But I have been here before. I've worked in a lot of towers, so I hope I can answer most of your questions. I seem to get all the ones in the Syracuse area. So this project is proposing a backup generator to be installed on the property. Currently there is none. American Tower is putting backup generators on most of their towers across the country in this business world and things where we rely on our cell towers and our phones. Backup generator power is a necessity more than an option, it seems like. So this is a standard generator that's been used on many, many sites. I believe one of the comments or questions was about sound and the generator being inside of a structure. The generator that's proposed, we feel is in a structure. The generator itself is in a metal cabinet with 4 access doors. All of that cabinet and those doors are soundproofed with insulation. The muffler of the exhaust has a sound reducing component on it. There's isolation mounts to reduce the vibration noise. So it theoretically is in a structure, not a building, but a structure. It's about 8 feet high, about 7 feet long. It's a metal structure that contains the generator itself. If you were to go to the site and see one of these generators, you would have to open the doors to be able to work or see the generator. It's enclosed within the metal structure. The insulation qualities of this cabinet pretty much brings the decibel level down to around 63 to 70 decibels, which is similar to an air conditioner or conversation in a restaurant. So it's not all that loud, but I guess if you're standing next to it, it's going to make you jump when it turns on. But it is enclosed and sound contained. So I think that was one of the questions. The other questions, I believe, from the notes, the original site plan that was approved back in 2005 showed future space for future carriers. This municipality, very similar to others, when you build a tower, you want it to allow for 2 to 3 multiple carriers. This tower was built at the time with American Tower for Verizon as the tenant then, showing 2 pads for future carriers. From 2005 until 2017, I believe, nothing happened. T-Mobile petitioned ATC, American Tower, to be a tenant on the tower, and their standard space is an 8-foot by 12-foot metal platform. The original site plan showed a 10 by 10 structure. A building permit was issued back in 2017 for T-Mobile space. I'm not sure if it went before the board or if it just went to building permit. In 2021, Dish also received a building permit for its 5 by 7 pad, which combined with this proposed generator space is taking up the original space that was a 10 by 20 structure. So those are the discrepancies, I guess, that evolved over time. But in each case, the discrepancies were issued a building permit and things were built prior to this application. So this generator is kind of filling in the remaining spot to provide backup power for T-Mobile first, Dish if they want it, and Verizon will be offered it. But those are business discussions. There is additional rent and things that go along with that. So that's between the tenants and American Tower as the owner. But the generator is proposed and sized appropriately for all 3 carriers, if they choose to tap into it. So I think those are the questions and concerns, so if there's any others.
So the new generator comes in its own little
compartment. I think my coworker provided specs to staff, I think. I have a picture or a set of them here that'll show. I'm not sure what they sent you, quite honestly.
And when installed, will the new generator be inside the footprint?
I can pass this around.
Okay.
This is the cabinet that it looks like. The generator's inside that cabinet. The bottom is the steel double wall tank for the diesel fuel. So this is all a self-contained unit. I can pass that.
Sure.
Take a look
right here and then add it to the file.
And that may have been what they sent to you, I'm just not sure.
So that will be within the fenced-in area at the site?
Within the fenced-in area.
So is this larger?
Okay, you're looking at an aerial?
No, I'm looking at,
Okay.
it looks, I don't know that I'd call it a building, structure of some type. It looks like one of these cabinets is also outside of it. So are we saying all of these cabinets should be in a building?
Well, I'm not.
No, I'm asking staff, I'm so sorry.
Are you looking at the site plan?
I'm looking a photo.
Oh, a photo.
A photo.
It's a Google image.
Google, yep.
Sorry.
Have a Google.
So there's something, I mean, at the scale, I mean, if it's a 6-foot high fence, it might be a 10-foot high something. Looks like a little it might be masonry building? or a box,
Is
a
it the
cabinet?
thing at the angle?
Here, you're welcome to come up and look at it.
I printed an aerial thing. So you're not looking at that, right?
Nope,
You're looking at this right here?
I don't know, it's at the
Yes,
base of the tower.
That is the original Verizon shelter that was put in with the original installation of the tower. A 10 by 20 or thereabouts, it's 12 by.
But it also looks like there's a cabinet right outside of it, right in the foreground of it, see that? Inside the fence?
Yes, I do see that. It's on the site plan. I
Yeah,
don't know
that,
what
Steve's is
that
mine's a little washed out, but his image is a little bit. So I guess the question for.
Can I see that again?
Sure, you might want to look at his too, it's a little bit.
That, I believe, that's not a generator, it's not big enough.
But it's equipment related to the tower.
It's equipment related, it could be related to Verizon, it could be related to the tower. I think you just said, it. Did you say telco? No. Oh, I heard you say telco. I think that's the fiber box.
So.
That brings the fiber into the site.
Thank you. So, from our perspective, any of this stuff, any accessory equipment is supposed to be not just behind a fence, but in some kind of a enclosed structure / building,
Correct.
whatever, not to exceed 400 square feet. So.
Right.
You all are saying whatever this thing is the equipment itself?
I'm not saying anything.
Well, it says here that it was approved, but now there's something. An 8 by 12 concrete pad in lieu of a future 10 by 10.
Right, that would be
wireless
that's the, I have another.
Which staff has no record of approval. So I read that as,
So I looked up the building permit number for that.
I guess what I'm trying to get at with our staff though is what is here is if this large box is the equipment itself, you're saying that should have been in a quote structure, just not on a pad?
No, we're simply quoting the regulation that if not located in an existing building, accessory equipment shall be located in a new building.
Right.
Or structure limited to a maximum of 400 square feet.
Right.
I can't speak to the reasoning behind it. Perhaps it was, maybe they knew that multiple things would be coming in and they wanted them consolidated when they wrote this regulation. I don't really know. I'm not speaking to anything that is there before, just what is here now, and to consider, I guess, the presentation.
If I could point to a site plan, I think for your 8 by 12 that you're talking about. That would be the T-Mobile spot, which is up here, which is probably not seen very well in your photo because it's in the background. Your photo's from about here.
Yeah.
Because this is that little cabinet that you were just pointing to.
The white one.
Yep.
Okay,
And
so.
this is the Verizon shelter.
And that's this shelter right here?
Yep, in the background, yep.
Gotcha, okay.
So, and this is T-Mobile spot in the upper corner, which is an 8 by 12 platform.
That's the
Which
concrete
was the-
pad that
the
staff are
concrete
talking
pad,
about.
which are the original future 10 by 10. I mean, site plan. And then the original site plan had a 10 by 20 future down here, which, I don't think this is showing it, but that's
Okay.
where Dish went on yours.
Okay,
So this is the 10 by 20 here. So
Okay.
the proposed generator and the Dish and T-Mobile were already approved building permits years ago. Verizon came in when the tower was built.
right, and I guess the way I read what our staff wrote is that an existing 8 by 10 concrete pad in lieu of future 10 by 10 wireless
Yep.
equipment building as approved by the city planning commission. So it was supposed to be a 10 by 10 equipment building that the planning commission approved, but instead
They
ended
went-
up with an
it-
8 by 12 pad.
Correct.
And then again, there is a 6 by 8 pad, even though the planning commission approved a 10 by 10, a second 10 by 10 equipment building. So every time there's outside equipment, if they're not all in one big building, each little piece of equipment is supposed to be in a building-ish. Wow, that makes no sense. Oh, my God, that's, okay.
Well, I'm just trying to follow you as I expand what I've got on the screen here for that C101 illustration.
Yeah,
What's being proposed is still gonna fit within
the fence.
the fence.
Correct.
Even if subtracting and taking away from what's there, you're saying some things don't exist, and we have to rely on what it says exist.
But if you think about what theoretically would have been there would have been all these little boxes built around equipment, as opposed to one big equipment building where they could have just added more equipment, so it makes no sense. Yeah, okay.
Staff, the
All right.
answer is everything's going to fit within that fence on the C101 illustration.
Yes. Okay. That's,
Yeah, well, the original site plan where this generator is proposed was approved with a 10 by 20 space structure. So within that 10 by 20 space, you currently have a 5 by 7 pad for dish, and now we're proposing a 6 by 8 pad for the generator. So both of those would fit within that 10 by 20 space.
Okay.
So-
Other questions?
so, again, this is to our staff.
Yep.
So, if we, for a moment, set aside building a million little buildings for every piece of equipment, what if, because I'm assuming the buildings, although you mentioned noise, I'm thinking it was more for aesthetics. If we, because we can waive this, what if we waived it, but we got some better screening of all this schmutz? Which is a technical term, just so you know. So either. Reasonable conditions. So either in, like an opaque fence, so you can't see it all, or some landscaping, as opposed to telling everybody who comes after this gentleman that they all have to build these little tiny pretend buildings. Well,
There's no more room in the compound after me, so they would have to make it bigger. And
never-
if at that
never say
point,
never, you never,
No, well,
people come up with crazy ideas. Okay,
now this is in an industrial zone. It's surrounded by
Right.
commercial and warehousing and things.
This
I
is
mean, is
true.
that a requirement in an industrial zone? Fencing, screen fencing?
well, but if we're waiving a requirement, it
Okay.
would seem to be maybe a modest and reasonable compromise. Like, again, even just a more opaque fence, so it,
So a fence around the proposed generator? 'Cause
or.
we could do that. We can put
Or just take the chain link fence that's there and make it a different fence around the whole padded area.
That's a little bit bigger undertaking. Which I'm probably not authorized to approve tonight. I was told I could put a stockade fence around the generator if you want to screen the generator. Re-fencing the entire
Which
compound,
would be inside.
that would be inside. I mean, that compound is roughly 40-some feet square, so you're talking somewhere between 160 and 200 feet of fencing. Which I'm not a fence expert. I don't know how you would modify a chain link fence
Well,
that way.
it-
I'm not saying it couldn't be done. I know, I've seen it.
Yeah,
But
it-
I just
it
don't
could
know the
also just be-
undertaking.
It could just be a whole new fence. It doesn't have to be that you would modify that. It might be just
Yeah,
something that's more.
that's a taking out the old and putting in a new fence. That's a
Yeah.
costly undertaking.
Well,
Vegetative screening.
Just to,
or, go ahead. Heather.
no, I was just going to say, just to clarify, really, the property owners, the onus is on the property owner to make sure that, they're in compliance with whatever.
Right. Not necessarily the carrier, it's the
in-
property owner.
Right, and if with any waiver, the commission should hear justification and can impose reasonable conditions to mitigate any waivers that are justified. So landscaping could be one of those mitigation measures, as opposed to solid fence around the whole.
But ultimately, it's the property owner who has to comply with local zoning.
Exactly. But all I was reiterating is that reasonable conditions are appropriate.
Landscaping may be an easier undertaking. This property is, or this fence compound area is kind of surrounded on three sides already by vegetation. But on that,
Side, I think, of the site that would need the screening the most.
yeah, the front side,
South,
right?
a little bit of the west.
Which is actually what backs up to the edge of the neighborhood.
Yeah. Further thoughts? Questions?
I'm all set.
Okay, so this is not a formal public hearing, but it is old business. Is there a motion for the site plan review on Erie Boulevard, 1502?
I would move approving the proposal on the condition that either fencing or landscaping be installed to help screen this equipment from the adjacent properties to the south, and that the applicant can work with staff, applicant/owner, can work with staff to finalize what that is.
Talking out loud, sorry.
That's okay, we all do it.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
And discussion on this motion? If not, then all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed, say nay. Any abstentions? We have a site plan review for Erie Boulevard, SR-21-07M1.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you
Your
for your patience.
patience.
You can have that. Yeah, no problem. I hope I came with all the answers, almost all of them.
Very knowledgeable.
Thank you.
We have additional new business.
Yes, we do. Okay, so the next new business item is SR 2207, site plan review for an antenna to install 2 CBRS antennas on the rooftop of Flint Hall, 100 University Place. Syracuse University is the owner and the applicant, and it is within a PID, Planned Institutional District. So this item can stand,
Maybe, sir,
Is this your backpack?
did you leave a backpack up here?
Oh, okay,
Oh.
we're all set.
Okay.
Sorry about that.
We're trying to give away your backpack, sorry. You caught us.
Have a good one.
so this complies with Part C, Section 1, Article 7 of the city zoning rules and regulations. And the commissioner approved similar request in August to install 2 antennas, in this August, last meeting, to install 2 antennas on Shaw Hall. And this is part of an overall project to install and establish private and secure cellular network within SUPID use. They seem to be coming piecemeal, but nonetheless, that is.
Expect more.
Yes, the carrier JMA wireless is just not something that we have seen before, and so that's why we kind of identified and further detailed what a CBRS is, Citizen Broadband Radio Service. But it still is an antenna. It still falls within that part of the zoning ordinance that reviews antennas, but this does comply with that part of the zoning ordinance.
And we had a confirmation from the county planning board for agreement that this board can act
Yes.
on this. Okay. Any,
There are photo simulations, but I really can't tell what I'm looking at, because they took them from like 100 miles away, but we have them.
Just start.
So perhaps the point is that you really can't tell. Can you see any better? No, not really, huh? Are they over there? I can't,
Now it's getting fuzzy.
yeah. But they provided them, and again, if the bottom line is that you can't tell, it must be okay.
Could we, I guess, potentially. Is that done?
Could be. I mean, basically, it's also at the core of the campus, so it's not like
Adjacent to a
neighborhood.
Yeah.
Well,
So, any other discussion on this one, the 2 for Flint Hall? If not, is there a motion on the site plan review?
Motion to approve with a negative declaration.
Thank you.
second.
Thank you. Discussion? If not, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, say nay. Any abstentions? SR 2207 is approved. Taking care of our old business and new business, and we move to discussion before we get to the authorizations and adjournment. So, Chris, do you want to give us the context
Sure.
for this?
So the discussion item is, I had sent the draft generic environmental impact statement to you all as an involved agency for the Rezone Syracuse project. The Common Council held a public hearing, and the comment period is open until September 2nd. So if you would like to make comments this evening, that this would be your opportunity to do so before the comment period closed. And with that, I know last time you talked about discussing and making comments.
Can you recap for somebody who was there, what the feeling was?
Oh, sure.
I couldn't get to the hearing.
Yes, so there were comments about, I want to say, the majority of the comments were about things, I believe, that were outside of the scope, namely student housing and the elimination of the special neighborhood district overlay. There were also comments about the preservation board and their processes. There were comments directly related to the scoping, which we're gathering all those now, and then we'll compile them and respond to them. But as an involved agency, I know you all have made comments previously, and so this is your opportunity to do that. But the general gist of the comments at the hearing were kind of those two outside items that were not necessarily related to scoping. However, the other people that spoke did address, and I can't remember exactly, but affordable housing was one, which was a direct scoping comment. And
But aren't we past scoping? This is actually the draft document?
yes, this is the draft generic environmental
Right.
impact statement.
So there was
Yes.
comments on the scoping, which is
Yes.
what we will look at in the draft
Yes.
EIS, and now this is the draft EIS.
That's correct.
Okay.
Yes, this is not comments on the law itself.
So they basically said in the scoping, this is what we're going to look at for impacts.
Yes.
Now they've looked at it, and wherever they identified impacts, they offered mitigation. And you're saying what people commented on were basically the removals of a couple of things from the document.
Right, some
The
people
overlays.
commented on the document itself, but not on what was talked about in scoping and the, yeah, not what's talked about in scoping, sorry, it's getting late.
Yes.
We have a starting point here. Chris had prepared.
I didn't do a whole heck of a lot because in my view, I commented on the scoping. They said, this is what we're going to look at in the EIS. I suggested that they look at some other things, or at least broaden a couple of the categories. And then in the scoping document, they might say, we're going to look at this topic, aesthetic concerns, and this is how we're going to look at it. So in some cases, my comment was to broaden how they looked at individual topics, or that they seem to be missing some things. So they did some of that, they didn't do a lot of it, but they also, on the positive side, they did provide some good information regarding some of the impacts. My biggest concern still is that there's really no assessment of, if implemented, but it doesn't achieve the goals that they want, are there negative impacts? So again, it comes down to, for me, in some areas, the MX classifications are huge. And if the idea is that we're trying to generate a certain amount of activity because we're encouraging through zoning certain kinds of projects to be built next to each other, if you have an MX2 district that's 15 blocks long, given the kind of growth we've seen in our community, in year one, we could get one of those great mixed-use projects on block 1, and 5 years later, the next one of those projects could be in block 14. So they're not next to each other, we're not gaining that synergy. Is there an environmental impact from that? If you have two things that separate and not a lot happens between them, should we think about that? They're saying no. I think that's what you do in an environmental impact statement. But in any case, I would recommend take a look at what I said. If you want, go read the document. And again, it's a starting point. It's always easier to edit.
It's a great starting point. And you updated your comments from before and added additional material, which I found nothing problematic at all in what you prepared. And I think maybe it was your new material, talked about the flood zone. I think that's important. I was writing more. There's also this interesting, for the flooding, there's this, you can build in a floodplain. If it's a house, it has to be, the first habitable floor has to be 2 feet above the flood zone. And then if it's commercial, it's a little bit different. So again, my argument as a planner is, but we have all this land all over the place. Why would we set up for people to build on, and mostly I'm talking about vacant land that's already in the floodplain. Why would we tell them to go there when maybe there are better places to go? And the argument was, it was kind of convoluted, but it would be good because it would be dense. And we build it 2 feet above the floodplain. Wouldn't it be better if we just didn't build in the floodplain? So anyway, again, I would say, when is our deadline?
The second.
Oh, good Lord. Okay. Well,
So if you're going to make comments, it should be tonight, and you can take what.
I would say if you want, start with this, because again, I think it's always easier to edit than to write from scratch. And send comments to Heather, and if you all think this is a good starting point, suggest where you might want to change it, deletions as well as additions, and then maybe those could be our comments.
Should we have a formal vote or a sense of a commission or consensus? I'm happy with the material that, I mean, I'm not saying I wouldn't accept changes, but I'd be prepared to endorse this document as our comments with maybe some additional editing as people have ideas that they want integrated into this, and use that as the core document that we move forward.
Would you give us any time before the second to get you something? Or you totally want it right now?
What would be appropriate is if this body, as a body, agrees.
Okay.
In a public forum of what your general comments are.
Okay.
As one of the involved agencies, you will need to vote on the document, you will need to recommend or not the document to the common council.
Okay.
We do have until the second, so.
That's Friday. But I would move that we endorse this document as containing the core issues and concerns of highest priority to the commission, and submit these or somewhat revised version of these in a timely manner so that they can be considered.
Yeah, so substantively, this is.
Substantively, yes, yes.
Would like to convey to the.
Yeah.
Yes, I would.
And then if anybody wants to make like a minor comment, or what if we say by Wednesday, just send an
Yes,
email
that's
to
basically what I'm
everybody?
asking you. Yeah.
So send everybody an email that says, hey, on page 2, third paragraph, would anybody object if we added this or took this word out or something? So,
Perfect.
does that work?
Perfect. Yeah, that's-
Okay.
Is that okay?
Is that okay with you guys?
Yes.
Okay.
All right, perfect.
Is there a schedule for when everybody thinks it would come, and Rebecca seconded it?
Right.
Who first did it?
This one?
Right, you made the motion.
And I seconded.
Oh, you did? I'm
Yeah.
sorry.
Yeah.
Okay.
She was very
We're having
quiet
some
about it.
discussion. I'm sorry. Any more discussion on the motion? If not, we have a plan to move forward. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, say nay. Any abstentions? So we have a plan and a process and a deadline to address that. Is there anything else that we need to take care of tonight other than the authorizations for the September 19th meeting? So we have those.
Yeah, the authorizations, the first two, 1 and 2. 1 definitely is in the South Salina Street Historic District, so hopefully we get the Preservation Board comments. And I can't remember, the Holly Green Street District boundaries got modified sometime in the recent past. So I don't know if Wayne Street is in it, but at a minimum, it backs up 2 houses that are on Green. So again, it might be good to have the Preservation Board's comments on that. I think that was the only thing that
I think there's an error in number 3. Isn't it East Fayette Street and Cherry Street?
Oh, yeah, it should be.
North, south, east.
Details. Good catch.
Okay, and then we have a few carryovers from this evening. The Salina Street project and our Verizon friends from West Onondaga. Okay. Is there a motion for those authorizations?
So,
Thank you. Second, discussion. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, say nay. Any abstentions? Those are set for Monday, the 19th. And our last item of business is adjournment. Sarah, move. A second. Discussion. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, say nay. Abstentions, we adjourn. To reconvene on the 19th of September. September. Ooh.
Such a shock. July was so short.
So was August.
All of summer was so short.
still.
Yeah, okay.
Happy Labor Day.
So welcome, new member of Corporation Council.
She was with our Verizon friend.
Okay, thank you, John.
That air conditioner went off at 3 o'clock this afternoon, I swear to God, it's hot here.
Well, the mess only gets worse. Thank you, Kenzo. Sorry, every now and then the passion bubbles up. I'm sorry.